Imagine two people. They sit in identical cubicles, perform identical tasks, and collect the same median paycheck for 40 years. 4 decades later, their paths conclude in different realities. One logs into a brokerage account showing a balance over $1.2 million. The other relies on Social Security to cover basic utility bills. Since the inflow of cash was identical for their entire working lives, the disparity originates outside of the payroll department. Accumulating $1 million for retirement follows a behavioral algorithm. Wealth scales based on how the mind processes money, regardless of the starting salary. Before examining the mechanics of this divergence, we have to look at the target itself. For decades, $1 million represented extreme luxury. The math underneath that number has shifted. This chart tracks the purchasing power of $1 million since 1994. Inflation has hollowed out the real-world utility of 7 figures, meaning the same numeric value now buys less than half of what it once did. Retirees now face specific escalating drains on their capital, with the average healthy couple today needing an estimated $315,000 just to cover medical expenses in retirement. $1 million portfolio provides a necessary buffer against rising healthcare costs and increased longevity. 7 figures no longer buys a lifestyle of yachts and private islands. In the modern economy, this sum functions as a baseline for basic financial security during a 3-decade retirement. The divergence between our two earners begins in their 20s, the period when the mathematical foundation of wealth is either secured or delayed. Behavioral economists identify this as hyperbolic discounting. It is a cognitive bias where the human brain favors a small reward today over a larger payoff years in the future. Subject A operates on this instinct. Early paychecks fund an upgraded apartment and high-interest auto loans. Capital that could have been deployed into the market is instead spent on depreciating consumer assets. Subject B overrides this urge. By living below their means, they route a percentage of every paycheck into investments before the funds reach their checking account. This graph tracks compound growth starting at age 25. The initial years appear flat, but long-term projections assume an aggressive hockey stick shape. When delayed until age 40, the time frame is too compressed for compounding to accelerate, requiring significantly more cash to achieve a similar result. Deploying capital early forces the math to perform the heavy lifting, which can overcome the disadvantage of a modest salary. As both earners enter their 30s and 40s, their salaries increase. This phase introduces new environmental pressures. Wired for social comparison, people instinctively mirror the financial choices of those around them to maintain standing in their peer group, ignoring the long-term cost. Subject A responds to rising income by expanding their lifestyle. The increased salary pays for larger mortgages and premium vacations. High-interest debt consumes the extra income, slowing their wealth accumulation. Subject B ignores the pull of status. They cap their expenses and channel salary increases into diversified index funds. During this period, many people rely on the belief that they will start saving once their income hits a specific milestone, or when life becomes less chaotic. These milestones often shift as fast as the income grows. Without intentional lifestyle suppression, a raise at work often becomes a mechanism to fund more expensive debt. This cycle keeps a high percentage of earners in a state of financial fragility. By their late 40s, both subjects encounter an inevitable economic contraction. A market crash erases 30% of portfolio values in weeks. We are susceptible to loss aversion. The distress of watching an account balance drop feels more intense than the satisfaction of watching it grow. Looking at this market drop, Subject A reacts with fear. Following emotional instinct, they liquidate their retirement account and exit the market at the bottom of the trough. Subject B navigates the volatility by doing nothing. Their asset allocation and emergency cash buffer allow them to wait for a recovery without being forced to sell at a discount. Historical downturns fluctuate, but a reactive human response to those downturns can turn temporary volatility into permanent loss. At age 65, the final disparity is clear. This gap reflects 40 years of specific behavioral choices, separate from market luck or inheritance. Joining the top 3% requires a systemic blueprint. From age 20 to 40, the process relies on 3 structural pillars: strict savings percentages, a durable cash buffer, and investment discipline that ignores daily market news. In the decade before retirement, the focus shifts toward risk management. Success during this phase involves protecting the principal and avoiding early withdrawals. Millionaire retirees build automated financial systems that remove human emotion from the equation. These systems perform the work that willpower alone cannot sustain. Financial independence results from the consistent management of our own biological flaws over several decades. Wealth is constructed through thousands of disciplined decisions made on average Tuesdays. Our two earners began with an identical pool of capital. Their lifetime earning power was equal, yet their final outcomes represent two different worlds. A lifetime of financial decisions carries more weight than the amount of a final paycheck. Becoming part of the 3% follows a predictable algorithm. The math behind that algorithm remains within individual control.